Welcome to Season 2 of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. Join hosts Nicola and Gina as they tackle workplace toxicity head-on. Real-life stories, well-being, and standing against toxicity await you. Let's break up with toxic workplaces and create a revolution of positivity together.
As a disclaimer, Nicola and Gina's opinions are solely their own and don't represent professional advice. It's just their perspective, so form your own conclusions. Heads up, this podcast may contain adult content and explicit language. So let's dive in and break up with toxic workplaces.
Oh, jeez.
All right. So,
I've been warned by 5 people now not to do this.
Who listens to our stupid podcast anyway? And
yeah, I bet
people
you
are,
none
like,
of them even
bashing us.
listens.
Nobody listens.
And when they do, they bitch about it.
They're like, "Oh my god, Gina's so annoying," and I'm like, "Yes, I am."
So, Captain, welcome to the podcast today. You have got
Hello, Gina and Nicola.
Welcome. We have got quite an interesting podcast, I think, today. So we would love to know from you what industry you work in and how long have you been working in the industry that you have come from?
I've worked in the entertainment industry for 30 years now. I started back in the early 90s, and I definitely went through, being from Los Angeles, there were a lot of drugs, a lot of cocaine, and I started in commercials and music videos, and that was wonderful. But over the years, getting older, it's been a bit more difficult. It brought me into the film industry for the past 20 years. So yeah, it's been a bit of a varied ride, meeting Courtney Love, Dave Matthews, Outkast, Big Boy, and those people that were very lovely. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to say it.
You had mentioned in our catch up that you had met Courtney Love. What was that like for you?
She was. What was really funny is there was a producer on the video that we worked on, and he berated me, and he called me a loser, and he was just an awful person. But she finally stepped in and was very lovely and very supportive. And I do know that she loves Periwinkle, the color. And I met Frances Bean and Floppy Bear, which was her teddy bear. But yeah, she was very wonderful, and she gave me her number, and she was very, I can't say enough good things about her.
Give you a number. Hey ho.
Well, nothing ever transpired from that, but yeah, it was funny because Joe Gaglione, which was the producer that berated me, because what happened was Nancy Bardowell was the original director on the show, and what happened was I kind of went against what she wanted to do, and it was part of a production company. So he was more connected to that. But I sold Courtney Love the idea that we want more Alice in Wonderland and not like anything Nirvana or, grunge. So yeah, but she was full on with it, and she loved it. And, Celebrity Skin was the music video. So yeah, that was a very interesting time.
Fair enough. So is being berated in front of people quite common?
Yes, that's the thing is, especially in Los Angeles, it could be it's very competitive. So people can get a bit opinionated about things, and especially if they think that you've gone over the line that you're supposed to do. It's definitely that was a very profound experience in my history. But yeah, I mean, but I've worked with other directors on music videos: Outkast, Bombs Over Baghdad, Roses. And what Brian Barber was lovely, great person. That was probably the only real kind of traumatic experience where I had to like bite my tongue and just be like, just accept it because I need to work.
Was it like, I'm curious to like know more about this berating. So was it more like you're a fucking loser or you're just a loser? Like how deep did this go?
Well, what happened was his partner was just injured, and he was very emotional. So just the beratement was just the fact that I overstepped what he thought I overstepped my boundaries. And luckily, Courtney Love stepped in, and my buddy producer Tracy stepped in and said, "You don't talk to him like that." It's like, I was just like, "I'll take it."
How old were you at this point?
24, 25.
Jeez. So still kind of new to the industry, or just like...
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd been working, this is like 97, 98. And I started back in, I think, 92. So I had some experience, but working with a bunch of different creatives on different commercials and such, prepared me a bit for it because they could be very caustic. But that was probably the most aggressive experience I ever had.
How did you get into this? Because it doesn't seem like it's there's a natural career path into.
It was strange. Well, strangely, so I used to, when I was a kid, I drew a lot of comics and did a lot of art. And what was funny was randomly I had a friend come over and hook a stereo up in my car. He said, "Hey, you're an artist. You should go, work for the company I work at." And I was like, "Sure." So then I just started, and it just kept going. So, but my background, my parents were in special effects as well. So I'm a bit accustomed to just the whole dynamics of the craziness and the drug use and everything. They were from the 70s, so, and 80s. So you can imagine some of that. Well, my next experience was I worked on a movie called The Guardian, which I'm sure you've probably seen. And
wait, just give because I'm terrible with movies. Which one was The Guardian?
The one with Josh Hartnett and
the one with the helicopter in the water.
Yes. So yeah, that was the next one. And what happened was it was a very small company, so it was very very stressful. And the thing is that there was an autistic guy. I think he was autistic. And I made we were all getting sick, and I made a joke about somebody touching his computer and all that. And he went off the rails. And so he spat in my face, then threw a chair at me, and then went to lunch. And me and my buddy were like, "What the hell is going on?" Because I'd never experienced anything like that either. And so he comes back.
Wait. He threw a chair at you and he spat at you. I feel like in this instance, and you were fucking with him, I feel like you're the toxic person.
The only thing I made a very simple joke about, hey, we've all been sick, and because it was like there was a weird, just sickness going on, and I said, well, Steve, Walt was at your computer, and he was touching it, and he had been really sick, and Steve just blew up at me. And so yeah, so then after he threw the chair and spit in my face, we're sitting there, we're like, what the hell just happened? And then he comes back from lunch and he proceeds to Lysol everything, so much so that we had to leave the room because it was just toxic. And the good thing though is that years later we worked together, and we're very friendly, and
All right. So can you tell us sort of how did you start working for the main company we're going to be talking about? How did you start working with them, and were there any red flags beyond the normal Hollywood or big mover and shaker in the entertainment industry, sort of frenetic meltdowns?
Yeah, well, at first, I was in Los Angeles, and I randomly sent this company my resume, and like an hour later, I got a response saying, "Hey, come out here." And initially, my contract was for 7 months, and that was pretty much it. And there were very long days, or we were doing 8-hour weeks and plus, and so much so that sometimes we slept under our desks. So it was very in the early days, it was very intense. And over the years, I've worked on many films, and over the years they've scaled everything back due to the laws governing the hours you can work and such.
Well,
but
let's talk a little bit about those laws, right? So this is one of the things that I'm really curious about, because so just to keep in mind, because we haven't really explained, because we know that you were a former employee at the place that we're going to talk about today. But there was a particular law that passed in New Zealand called the Hobbit Law. It was formerly known as the Employment Relations Law, and it became well known across the board in 2011. And the law essentially fundamentally changed the employment landscape for film production workers in the country. Originally, it was designed to address industrial disputes that threatened the production of The Hobbit, because this, Hobbit was made here. We've had Avatar, we've had Lord of the Rings, we've had a lot of big movies made here. And so it was originally addressed to, deal with the Hobbit movie films, and the law had a broader implication on contract workers in the entertainment industry in general. So the key points that came out of this particular law change was contractor status. It classified film workers as contractors rather than employees, and unless they had a written employment agreement stating otherwise, this meant that the contractors were not entitled to certain legal protections that employees typically enjoy, such as collective bargaining, sick leave, holiday pay, ACC, protection against unjustified dismissal. There was also a lack of bargaining power, so there's very little bargaining power for those contractors in New Zealand. They can't engage in collective bargaining through unions, significant disadvantage in an industry where the jobs are project-based. Job insecurity as well. The nature of film production, involves tight schedules, we know, and project-based work. Being a contractor makes this setting, the job security, even more precarious. And you're essentially hired for a project or even part of a project with no obligations for long-term employment.
Well, typically, we would get these, if you're lucky enough, you'd get a year contract and such. But what they do is they treat you like an employee, but they expect you to be a contractor. So any sick time that you take off, it's kind of frowned upon. And it's definitely it's trying to have both worlds, with the exception of you're not an employee. It's you're an employee, or expected to act like an employee, but you're a contractor and you don't get any of those benefits of being an employee.
And do they still do that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
We know that we had, these implications for contract workers, which is essentially what this organization employs. Now, there are two, I want to say there are two houses almost. There's Weta Digital and there's Weta Workshop. Weta Digital is the visual effects arm, and they're into their computer generated imagery, and they've made movies like Avatar, Avengers, most recently Cocaine Bear, and they focus more so on digital visual effects, 3D animation, and CGI. And then there is another arm called Weta Workshop, and they focus on practical prop design and manufacturing, and they kind of have tangible elements. So they have prop design, manufacturing, creature design, special effects makeup, and their main projects were The Chronicles of Narnia, Mad Max, District 9. And I think the reason, kind of getting right into the nitty gritty of it, both companies are part of the Weta Group, and they're very distinct entities with their own specializations, but they've both got very different workplace culture issues, and that's kind of what we wanted to speak about. They're based in Wellington, New Zealand, been part of huge iconic films, won numerous awards, but all that glitters is not gold. Jokes. When employees have, when we've spoken to previous employees that have joined this organization, they've described it as the holy grail for creativity. But what's changed is that there is a culture of toxicity, bullying, harassment that have overshadowed that creative work as well. And while the allegations are pretty serious and varied, there's been a lot around, kind of the revelation of the existence of the caveman, which I'm sure you can tell us a little bit more about.
I'm aware of that.
I have no idea what that is. Please explain, someone.
So in 2020, two independent reviews were conducted. QC did an 11-week review of Weta Digital involving interviews with over 200 current and former employees, much like yourself. She received 80 complaints of bullying and another 120 complaints of inappropriate conduct. She made 17 recommendations, including developing a code of conduct and improving and reporting mechanisms. That the management, including the founders, had expressed commitment to implement these recommendations. At Weta Workshop, there was another review held, but the review cleared the company allegations, leading to further controversy because Hive found the allegations to be unsubstantiated, which raised questions around the investigation's thoroughness, fairness. Did they interview enough people? Were the right questions asked? And there was a lot of insight into the fact that, they had learned from the QC issue and started getting people to do NDAs, which was really interesting as well.
Yeah. Well, we have to sign an NDA anytime we get a contract extension. The thing is with like the cave and such, I think a lot of it is the pressure and working long hours, and literally people have hard liquor on their desks and are drinking throughout the day, can make for a bit of a kind of elastic reality around certain behaviors. It's definitely not, you definitely don't want a bottle of vodka at your desk or some people actually had full bars. And then you find people looking at these, graphic pornography at their desks just randomly. And it's like, what the hell is that? It wasn't really acceptable back in America, back in the 90s. It's
So how did they get away with it here? Like what, because
it's
and explain to Gina what the caveman is, because
well,
literally
the caveman was kind of like a post that people would do where they would put graphic jokes, pornography, just random ideas about certain women that worked at the studio. And and basically it was just it was very boys club, very kind
where
of
would
like
you put the post though? Like, was it company wide?
it was an internal system that you could share things
So kind of
with.
like a
So
Slack or something.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it definitely was. And like I said, in that time, there was a lot of drinking. There are very long hours, and there are some very crude people that kind of abused people, or um, uh, had subjects or topics that they would talk about people and such. And these were mainly women. Um,
Did
it
anyone
was.
get in any trouble, like specifically for this?
No, it finally got shut down, because people were talking about it. It's like they don't want anyone to know this.
But
Because
yet everyone's talking about it.
how did the caveman kind of relate back to Porn Friday?
well, I think those two were related. So yeah, the caveman thing, or cave thing, predates my time there. It went back to like 2005, I think. So it went on until like 2013, 2014, or 2015, and then I guess HR got involved and was like, this is unacceptable. Um, it was definitely a very different time in the company. Even though now it's become much more corporate and you don't see that anywhere anymore, which is good. But yeah, it definitely, it was a bit crazy back in, the early days or earlier days.
So was it more so like that it grew out of the caveman posts? Like people were putting like pornographic stuff in that messaging system, and then
Yeah.
once that got shut down, it kind of morphed into, what was it? What do you guys call it?
Porn Friday?
Yeah.
I never partook in that, but I witnessed it, and
So can you explain what exactly a typical Porn Friday was like? I must know.
well, it's just a lot of sharing of graphic images, of women, and various states of undress, and situations.
Tactful.
Yeah, well,
What's
okay,
that?
so what'd you say, Nicola?
So tactful.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people know what pornography is, but I think for me, I'm curious, like, how did it become like, did men and women participate in this? I mean, I understand women were sort of on the receiving end of like all of that caveman talk, but like, how did it become like a company-wide thing?
Well, the thing is that we work in a mainly dominated in the past by men, and it's just kind of like it's like I would describe it as maybe a little bit of a fraternity mentality, where it's just like a bunch of guys sharing stuff with guys, but there were women around, which made them uncomfortable and was very unpleasant. And it's like, like I said, I was never into that, because I'm here to work, but it was more of like kind of a boys club.
Do you know
And
anyone who did participate in Porn Friday?
yes, several.
Wait, Wait, okay. So did the majority of people participate in Porn Friday?
Well, like I said, it was mainly men, but
Right.
we had people that were getting busy in the showers.
Okay, wait,
Um,
hold on. Because I was gonna say, like, there's nothing worse in my opinion. I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, if I were to get like super turned on at work, like, what's the point?
What's the end game?
Yeah, like
well,
that would be horrible. I'd be like, yeah, like now I want to go have sex with my partner, but I can't because I'm stuck at work. Like, what is the? Yeah, like I don't understand. Like, what is
well,
the point?
wait,
Have you got people like at work? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening?
well, no. So we have these showers, and a few of the people would get busy in the showers, and so much so that the great guy that was doing facilities, he had to clean up condoms from the shower floor.
Come on, people, like at least clean up after yourself. That's so fucked up.
No, it was, it's definitely changed now. It's definitely not that way. But yeah, I mean, it would, it literally, people were getting busy with each other and the certain areas they could. And it just happened. It was just like I said, I was oblivious to most of it. Most of the time I'm just like, I just sit at my desk and work. But yeah, it definitely was a bit crazy. It's when there's a lot of uh there's a lot of interactions going on with several different people, just because they were like, fuck it, I can do it. There was much more, it was much more free kind of going environment then. But that's all definitely changed very, drastically, which is a good thing. So yeah.
And what was the
Yeah, go.
Nicola, was the downfall when like how did it change so drastically? Like was it
So
because
it
of
was
the
it was
report?
mainly from this review.
Yeah.
There was this huge review that was
Okay.
done, and then a whole bunch of stuff had to change. And
Yes.
one of the things that came out of the review, though, and I'm curious to know a little bit more about this as well, is in the review, both Weta Workshop and Weta Digital were accused of setting unrealistic deadlines, overloading workers with work, and creating a culture where hoarding work became necessary to appear busy. And obviously in those kinds of instances, your stress level is really, really high. What has changed with regards to like that overloading of work and that kind of unrealistic expectation? Because that creates its own toxic environment. It creates its own little toxic ecosystem.
In my opinion, it hasn't really changed. The bid days keep getting shorter, and they expect more, but they still want a high performance. So it's, in that sense, it hasn't changed. All the sexual stuff and all the, I think a lot of the bullying has gone away, but it's now it's being run by an American company, and they expect an American kind of, you just keep going, and what they do is a lot of the friends in the past have gone away, because it's like you get to a certain age and it's like, I can't compete with these kids anymore. It's you've done a lot of work, and literally it's you have to, you're only as good as your last shot, or getting the work done. So
What do you
yeah.
what do you feel, especially with like due to the nature or the competitive nature of the industry, the scarcity of jobs, obviously employees choose not to speak up or speak about their experiences. What do you think is kind of the mental health or the psychological impact of that persistent stress, the long hours? Like, what kind of impact do you think that has on, people in or doing the work?
Well, people will self-medicate. They try to take time off and such, but it's definitely it's destructive to your mental wellness, because there's been a industry wide, called race to the bottom, where a lot of the work is outsourced to India, China, Korea, and such. And so what happens is you have to try to keep up, with all those stressors. And the thing is it leads a lot of people to, like I said, self-medicate and such.
Burnout. One of the things in the review is that former employees had spoken about becoming agoraphobic, and being completely burnt out, that they left the industry.
Yeah.
Agoraphobic, and never leaving the house again.
Well,
which is bizarre.
There was this person, this trans person, that literally just up and quit because they couldn't deal with the harassment and just the negativity, and along with the work stress. So it's like, it coupled all those different things together and was just too toxic for the person to be there, and they left.
I feel like that they should have left. That's terrible. They're being like bullied and then like overloaded, right?
And it was the person was very professional and very achieved. It just became too much for them to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm also curious to know, do you, like in your circle, do you know anyone that's also left the industry because of kind of the pressures or the experience that they've had?
Yeah, a few of the people that I know, were just like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. It's just, like I said, it's always, you're always working on deadlines and notes and things, and it can get a bit frustrating, with the hours, and some people will give these weird notes that make no sense, and it just gets frustrating. So yeah, and my circle, 4 people have left. They're just like, I'm done.
What do they end up doing? Like, what do they end up like transferring to?
Well, one is an Uber driver.
Okay.
And a couple of others, literally one of my friends, what happened was he was driving by the road, and he saw, the guys that hold the signs, and he's like, you know what, I'd rather do that than do this job.
Oh shit.
What's
you
that?
mean like the lollipop people, like the people that like spin the signs?
Yes, he was
Wait,
like, you know
signs?
what?
Because like people on the side of the road with signs in here is like you're begging.
No.
I'm
Like
thinking those people that like hold the signs like an arrow and it's like,
oh no.
this way.
No, like road workers. County
workers. I was like, he'd rather be begging for money than go to work. That's bad.
And I'm like, sign spinner, I'm like, here for it.
You're like, Mom, pass over here.
No, he wasn't begging for work. He literally looked and he saw that the guys on the side of the road doing the construction had a very low aggravation level, and he was like, you know what, I'll do that instead.
Is he doing that now?
Yes.
And is the level of stress better?
It definitely is less stressful, I think, than this industry, and he'd been in the industry for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
he was
wild.
Yeah, no, he was just at his wit's end. But yeah, it's definitely it's like I said, it's when they keep shrinking the bid days, and you're competing with younger people that get paid less, and you get a bit older, it gets to a point where you're, just a bit, just burn out.
You
I
just
think.
want to explain for the listeners what a bidet is, because I feel like that's a concept in itself.
Well, a bid day is essentially the amount of time that they want you to complete a task. So you can have a shot that you know that basically they say it should take 2 to 3 days to do this, but sometimes that's not true, and sometimes you get these you have a lot of things to do in a certain shot, and then what happens is they're like, well, you just need to hurry up, but they still expect perfection. So it's definitely the amount of time they expect you to do a certain project, or a certain shot.
Okay. So they're like allotting, I mean, I do this too, like with some of the people who report to me, like I'm like, we need it by X day, but they get room to like negotiate, like, okay, well then that means I can't do X, Y, and Z by this day. And I'm like, okay, like prioritizing your stuff. But first of all, I just want to go on the record that I thought you were saying big day, like this is a big day. And then when Nicola said it, I thought she was saying bidet, like the tushy thing. And I was like so confused. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, it's a bid day. It's bidding out a certain amount of
No,
time.
I get it now, but like the audio, I just was like, what are we even talking about? I think most people know what a bidet is, Nicola. Why would you ask that?
Yeah, because the work is shit, so you gotta like bidet your butt.
Do you know what? Well, I can go into a whole other aspect about the bathroom techniques that happen, which
Oh my God! Wait, what? What bathroom?
Some of the people, some of the people out here can be a bit crude.
No, you know what? Just like let's rip this band-aid off and just tell us exactly what's going on, because
I've witnessed feces being wiped on the walls. Guys walk around, they urinate, and they just.
Wait, why? Is this a farm animal? Is this a barn?
It's weird. I don't understand the culture. Some people are very respectful and all that, but there are some people that literally will, piss everywhere. And like I said,
what is the point of that?
I
don't like, why would
don't know if
someone want to do that?
They're marking their territory. I don't know.
At work?
At work,
so confused.
yes.
I'm so confused
like,
because like whenever I hear about like poop being wiped on anything, it's either like an infant who like got in her diaper or whatever it was, or like that happens in jail, like when they don't have anything else to retaliate with, they'll like wipe feces all over to get like the COs to come in and clean up. Like that's what I associate that with. But
maybe this is their
jail? Is this their version of jail?
It's maybe it is. I never understood it, but I've seen a lot of feces.
How are you still even working there? Like, if I saw one thing of feces on the wall in the women's bathroom, I would be out. I would have like a complete hissy fit.
I don't even. You and I have spoken a lot about poop, Gina, and I wouldn't even I wouldn't even poop. My poop would be so scared to poop.
I mean, if I was so like, to me, and I don't want to go too much on. I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole on this, but like, if I had like colleagues who felt okay doing that, I would be concerned about their mental health and also like what's actually happening here. I would be like, how are these people getting in positions of power or jobs, and then they also feel like they can wipe poop on the wall? I'd be out. I'd be like, this is not the right fit for me, I don't think.
Well, unfortunately, In my experience, I've done this all my life now. I'm older, and you just kind of deal with it. Like I said, back in Los Angeles, there was a lot of drug use and a lot of
But
very.
that was also the timing, like in the 90s, like the 80s and 90s, like I don't think you could have thrown a cat at someone who was sober, like in any industry, right? Like, like,
No.
right. So, I mean, now at least from what I understand, it's not as prevalent, but maybe I'm wrong. Like the open drug use and maybe alcohol is a little bit more okay just because you're legally allowed to do that. I don't know, but
Well, I know. Well, it's definitely improved. We do beer clock, and I've heard about stories about people going off on beer clock and just getting a bit crazy. I don't partake, but yeah, it's definitely it's improved.
because
So
most of the people that I know who are in the entertainment industry either are now sober or were just like never like that. They had to get sober to stay, to stay employable.
yeah, well, that's the thing is that you definitely need to figure out what you want to do, or and the thing is that a lot of people are that I've known got sober or left the industry,
Right.
but because it's unsustainable.
Right.
So would you recommend to young pippins coming in to get into this industry, or are you like hashtag avoid?
I would recommend that nobody gets into the industry because, like I said, there's a VFX soldier, and the whole idea of race to the bottom, and so you just have to keep. You either achieve a level of success that you don't have to deal with it, or you just have to deal with it and live with all the ramifications that transpire from working long hours and deadlines that are unreasonable.
Yeah. Do
So
you
yeah,
feel like you're still like always like running like behind schedule, or
yes, unless you get a string of shots that you can go through and work through, and get it done, and the bid days aren't crazy. It's you're always running, and at some point, if you're younger, it's a bit easier. But as you get older, it's like, what the hell am I doing? It's maybe I should be doing something entirely different. But I definitely would not recommend any young people get involved in this industry because, as I said, it's you're competing with the world, and and you have none of the job security, and you have none of the benefits of having sick time or time off, and you're looked askance if you take any time off for health or personal issues. So yeah, it's definitely find something.
How glamorous is it really during like making a movie? I have a feeling it's probably grueling and it's awful.
Well, it's actually not very. It's not glamorous at all. Hold on, I need to charge my phone. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye. Hello, goodbye.
Hello, bye.
I'm like terrified of even saying anything.
I see this. It's just distressing.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. If you enjoyed our candid conversations and insights, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us on social media, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.